Welcome back, my friends. 3 quick things I want to tell you before this video starts, so please bear with me. The first thing I want to say is please stay safe during this time. Stay inside, stay creative, keep working on things. We're going to be ramping up the video production. That's the second thing I want to mention. A lot more tutorials than usual are coming because we're at home now. Past few weeks I was visiting family, working on things. Now we're going to be buckling in, grinding out these videos, which brings me to my third thing I want to tell you. This video you're about to watch is a highlight from this giant thing I'm editing right here on your screen. This is a full step-by-step recreation tutorial of the visual effects in the Cole Bennett Lyrical Lemonade Godzilla music video with Eminem and Juicewrld. So this entire over an hour long mega tutorial is going to be uploaded sometime tomorrow, and to make it easier to watch, I'll have all the timestamps in that, as well as we're going to be exporting highlight videos like this one. So if you're only trying to learn one specific thing, like this one is about the floating knives, then you can watch it like this. So anyways, guys, we're going to be doing some streams for all you people at home doing nothing. We can all create something together. We can all review some stuff. Discord community link down below. Enjoy the video. Welcome to today's tutorial, guys. Okay guys, now on to the 3D portion of this tutorial. We're going to be showing you some interesting things. I'm going to be using Cinema 4D for the majority of this, but you guys can use any 3D software you are familiar with. We're going to be doing a lot of basic things that a lot of 3D softwares have. The main things that we are going to show you is this circle of knives or whatever kind of 3D object you want around your subject tracked into 3D space. We're going to show you how you can create your own floating 3D CDs, albums, whatever it is, and put it into your track footage. And then we're going to show you how to create something like 3D puke, 3D Lego puke, like in the music video. So it seems a little bit intimidating, especially if you guys are new to 3D, but I promise you it's not that hard. Follow along. We're going to try to make it as easy as possible for you guys. So first off, the number one thing we're going to need to do, which is the same first step for every single one of these looks that we're trying to accomplish, is we need to track the footage that we are working with. So here's the footage we're going to be using. I'm going to go ahead and duplicate this. So Alt click and just drag up. Right click, and we're going to bring this into After Effects. So replace with After Effects composition. All right, so we have the clip into After Effects. Like I said, the first step, which is going to be the same first step for every 3D look we're trying to do, is to track the footage. So to do that, you right click on the footage, you go to track and stabilize, and you track the camera. If this is grayed out, you may need to just double click on this until this option is available. Track and stabilize, track your camera, let After Effects do the work. It's gonna get all the tracking information. All right, so our track is complete. If I scroll through here, you're gonna see all of my little track points are looking good. Everything is correct. Make sure that whenever you are doing this, you're shooting with not too much motion blur, not too much shaky footage, because if your track isn't clean, if it isn't clear, if it isn't crisp, whenever you put your 3D assets in, they're gonna be jiggling all over and it's not going to look realistic. If there is a tiny bit of bounce or movement in your shot, later on we'll show you how to stabilize everything to make it look smooth. But for now, what you need to do is go to your effect controls and click Create Camera. Now select your main footage here, select the 3D camera tracker effect once more, and we're going to choose the position where we're going to want to track. I'm just going to use my shirt here, right click on this bullseye and click Create Solid. And then I'm going to open up the solids options here, and we're going to just kind of change the orientation so that we have a general reference of where I am standing in the shot. So that's fine. The next step here is we're going to go up to File, Export, in Maxon Cinema 4D Exporter. Again, I mentioned I'm going to be using Cinema 4D. We're not going to be doing too much complex things in Cinema 4D, so if you use 3ds Max, if you use Blender, if you're familiar with that, you probably will be able to follow along if you understand these concepts very well. Maxon Cinema 4D Exporter, and the reason for doing this is we're bringing this 3D tracking information into our 3D software. That's the only purpose of doing this. So we're going to go ahead and just name this to Tutorial Knives. Here we are in Cinema 4D. I'm just going to quickly move myself over because our main options are going to be over here. All right, so step number one, like I said, we're going to want to file, open, and find that After Effects C4d file that we just saved. So here it is, Tutorial Knives Track. Go ahead and open that up. Now what you're going to see here, if we just click play, this is the exact track in 3D space from After Effects. So it took that tracking information and it's brought it into After Effects here. So if you want a better visual representation of this, in the top right in your little object menu here, you can open up this null, and inside you'll see this is our 3D camera tracker from After Effects. This is the track solid that we made, so this is where I am in the shot. And if you guys even want to see this better, you can click off of this little camera object target here. Just zoom out. You can use these tools if you're new to C4d, or just the mouse wheel. Use your rotation, your move. Click play, you'll even see the camera moving in 3D space. So if I was in a bird's eye view, whenever this shot was taken, this is the exact camera movement. You can see the little dips from the moving forward. If you want to go back to that camera view, you just click back on this target. So keep this in mind. This is a big thing because we're going to click off the target when we want to put things in the scene. You don't want to be in your camera view, so you don't want to mess up the keyframes. When you want to actually see what it'll look like through the camera, then you click to your target and you see what it'll look like tracked into place. So hopefully that makes sense. If not, don't worry, we're going to make it a lot more simple moving forward. So you have your 3D tracking information in your 3D software. The next is to get your asset or make your asset. So if you guys know how to sculpt in your 3D software, a knife is something that could easily be made. I'm not going to sculpt it myself. I'm just going to go onto the internet and find a 3D knife model. All right, so here is the knife that I used, this polished knife PBR. I'll leave a link down below. I'm pretty sure let's see, it was free, so there you go. There are paid ones. There's a bunch of free ones. You don't have to use Turbo Squid. If you just search free knife 3D model, what you want to be looking for is the formats available. If it's available for Cinema 4D project file or whatever project file that corresponds with your 3D software, always go for that first. But if not, you always want to download an FBX or an OBJ. So go ahead and click download on this. I made a giant folder just for everything to do with this tutorial here. So if I go over to my knife folder here where I saved the actual 3D model, you can see I have my knife FBX and a folder with my textures so I can map everything correctly. So let's show you how to do that. Grab your FBX and just drag it into Cinema 4D like this. If you don't want to drag it, you can always file, merge objects, and find it. And what that did is it just opened up a new project with only our knife. So now let's design the look of that circular knife thing, and then we'll take it into our shot. You can switch to the other project file just by holding V on your keyboard. Go to projects and still holding V. So we can switch back and forth. So let's work on our knife project. So with our knife here, let's first worry about actually texturing this. So to do that, we're going to open up that folder that has our textures, and let's go ahead and check these out. So you'll see base color, black, or if you want the wooden handle, and then you also have a normal, you also have a roughness map, a diffuse, a specular, metallic. If you guys are new to 3D, you probably have no idea what that even means. No worries, we're going to go ahead and create a new material. So I'm going to be working with the Octane live viewer render engine for this. You guys don't have to use Octane. You can follow along and just do it with the default render, or maybe use Redshift, maybe use Arnold. Those are two other kind of 3D renderers which you can have as a third-party kind of thing. I like Octane because you can just kind of drop this thing and drop this live viewer, fire it up, and you have this kind of live render view here. But again, if you're just doing with a physical, normal, vanilla Cinema 4D, you can just double click into the texture here, start loading in the maps like I'm about to. I'm using Octane, so I'm going to go to Create, Shader, C4d Octane Material. I'll double click on this material here, and we can drag it onto the knife just so everything we do, we start to see the changes. And for this texture in particular, I'm actually going to change the material type from diffuse to metallic because I want it to have this shiny, reflective kind of metal look to it. Now let's start loading in the texture map. So you can go through here, diffuse. You see this is where you load your texture in. Just click these three dots. It'll open up. Make sure you go back to wherever your knife textures are. So knife FBX. Textures, and we're going to load this base color texture here into the diffuse. So go ahead and do that. Next, let's go to the specular here. Open up these three dots and load in the specular. So spec gloss, knife specular, click that, open it. Now we can see our knife. So we're starting to get there. Next, let's go to the normal. I'll load in the normal map that we have here. It also has roughness. So whatever corresponding layers that are available here, we can go to roughness. You can load those all in just like that. And now if I zoom in here, you're going to see our knife is starting to look pretty good. If you want to change anything, you can just pop into your texture, check out the values. But for now, for what we're doing, this is going to be an okay look for our knife. Now our job is to get this in a circle and then take that circle of knives and put it in our track scene. So let's go ahead and talk. So let's talk about how we're going to accomplish that. So instead of Control C, Control V, duplicating the knives and painfully placing them in a perfect circle, what we're going to do is use this basic little 3D tool here. It's under MoGraph. So click MoGraph. We're going to use a cloner. So select that. And you'll see in our object menu, the cloner is now here. To actually use that cloner, select this knife object, click and drag. You see how it's left arrow, down arrow. You want to make it a down arrow and then release. Now the knife is a child of the cloner and the cloner is taking effect. So you'll see it's now cloned our knife. We now have 3 of them. So let's click on our cloner and we can change how this is going to be cloned and we can put it in the shape that we want. In the bottom right here, you see our options through our cloner. You can go through coordinates. This is basically where it's positioned. Basic, don't need to worry about that. Object, this is what we're mainly going to work out of. Transform, we're going to use this a little bit as well. And then effectors. We have our mode here. We can change this mode from linear to object. And now what it's saying is we're going to clone these in the shape of an object, but you're going to need to tell us what object you want first. We're going to want this in a sphere, a circular sphere of knives. If you want it a different object, you guys can create a different object. So we're going to create a sphere. Just click and hold on this cube, select sphere. And then let's go ahead and just position this here. So select our cloner again. You see under object, this kind of blank tag here. Just click the sphere object, click and drag it into there. There you go. We now have this kind of pinwheel of knives because it's cloning our knife object into this sphere. So this I think actually looks really cool and you can do a lot with cloners, but we're going to talk about how to get our specific shape we want. Select the cloner. For now, let's just put it on random. And we're going to go to transform because this is how we can change the look of how the clones are behaving. There's also this up vector. It's set to none right now. Let's select that. You guys want to click through this and you're going to see it's going to align this depending on what axes you want it to. So positive Y, negative Y. This is going to come in handy. Let's first go to transform. We'll keep it on positive Y for now. Go to transform and you see these options here. Position X, Y. You see if I click and change that, we're doing a bunch of crazy things. This is your scale X and Y if you want to kind of see what that looks like. So we're doing a bunch of craziness. And this is our rotation X and Y. For now, we're only going to worry about our rotation. And before we do that, I forgot one thing in object. Our distribution, right now it's distributing from the vertex. Let's put that on edge. And now we actually have a sphere, little sphere ball. So the knives are kind of compact right now. It's literally just looking like blades. So let's kind of pull them away from the sphere. So you see our Z here, click and just kind of pull that. So I'm just taking my mouse, putting it up. I put it to around 361. Now we actually have this kind of cage of knives around our sphere. We can even move in. You'll see what that looks like from the inside. So you'll see the handles are making up the cage. The blades are on the outside. Again, looks really cool. You guys can do a lot with this, but we want the blades to be pointing inward. To do that, let's change our rotation now. And you're going to kind of have to mess around with it. We'll change the H rotation and there we go. So now we kind of like a coronavirus shaped knives. You'll see what that is looking like. Spread that out more. Click and drag my Z. And now we have a bunch of knives facing the circle. And we'll zoom in here. And again, with the rotation, these are kind of upside down. So there we go. I just put up the P's to 260. So if you want to copy those values, now all of the knives are pointing in directly towards the sphere. Now, there's a crazy amount of knives here. Let's go back to object and remember how our distribution is changed to edge. Well, that is corresponding to the actual sphere. It's talking about the edges of the sphere object. If you want to change that, if we click on our sphere and we go to object here, you'll see the segments. If we just start clicking that down, you're going to start to see that our knives are starting to kind of lower because we're lowering how many segments are in that sphere. So now this is a little bit more manageable. And again, if you want to spread it out more, you can click on your cloner and then go to your transform again, put up the Z, So it's really up to you, but that really is about it. If you want to, you guys can always experiment with the different values. You can create different looking shapes. This is just how I did it. My goal isn't just to show you how I did one exact thing or how somebody else did one exact thing. My goal is just to show you the different tools on how you yourself could accomplish this. You can customize it however you like, but for now, this is looking like a good knife sphere. So I like the sphere, but I don't want it to be showing in our scene. So in our object menu, we can keep it here. We're not going to disable it. We're not going to delete it. We're just going to double click these two dots so it's not showing in the render or the edit. So it's technically there, but it's invisible. If you select the sphere, you can change the transform. You can grab the rotation. One thing I did, just a quick little mention before we put this in our track footage, is if you want a look where the knives are kind of going towards somebody, if we click our cloner, again, our transform, you can keyframe all these values just like in Adobe Premiere and After Effects. So say this is our Z, this is what's moving them in and out. If I keyframe that at our beginning position, we click, make that a red dot, drag for however long you want, maybe 40 frames, and we kind of make those inside, and then you click again to activate the keyframe. What you'll see is here's our keyframe. So if we click play, there you go. So you can create animations like that. You can do that with any of the values. Cool thing to know when it comes to customizing your stuff that you're creating with this. So this is all good to go. We're going to click select everything, Control C to copy, and then hold down V, and let's plot back into our track comp here. We'll refire this up. So again, this is our camera tracking. This is so that we can have everything match perfectly. So pause this, click in your object menu, Control V to paste. So now this is going to look crazy, and this is where we kind of need to finesse everything, place it exactly where we need it. So this is why we use this track solid. If you could have just exported the camera without a track solid, but the track solid's purpose is to show us where in 3D space we're going to be putting this stuff. So first step first, before you go crazy, you start moving everything, always click off your camera. This is checked, click off of it. Now we can freely move around, do anything, change things without our camera keyframes being messed up. So again, hold shift, select all of this, and then we'll just take our Z value and just move it to where this green target is. You're going to need to use your controls here, get familiar with everything, and position that exactly where you need it around the green square. Now let's click back to our camera. This is what it's going to look like in the camera view. So now, as you see, we play it, and the circle is completely tracked onto that sphere. So we're getting there. For some reason, our knives are just like very black, but we're going to fix that in a little bit. So let's double click on our texture. Let's go ahead and just reload our maps because for some reason they kind of get lost around. See, they all turn black. So let's reload our normal here, and let's see, let's reload. I think that's it. So we're good to go. Our knives are looking normal. We'll play that, and you'll see with our reflection, they're even starting to reflect the green target here. And we're going to talk a lot about that because the reflection and trying to match the environment with what we're bringing in is a huge part into making this look as realistic as possible. So I'm going to give you guys another huge tip. Instead of going about this blind, what you can do is make sure that your camera is enabled. So it's checked. You can press play to check and see if you are in the camera view. You want to file, save. Let's save as tutorial knives tracked. That's fine. So file, save. You can hop back into After Effects here, find where that Cinema 4D project file is, so tutorial knives, so click, drag that into your actual scene. And now with that placed in your actual scene, you'll see in a few seconds it'll pop up. Make sure this is in a layer above, and you're gonna see the outline of what you are creating in 3D space. So this is a great way to make sure that your track is correct. If we turn this on and off, you'll see that these targets are lined up. You can click play, and you can kind of see a basic little render of what these knives will look like. And this is key because you can do real-time changes. So you see how the circle looks here. Obviously, it's too small. We need it bigger. So all you need to do is say, okay, I need to make it bigger. Pop into Cinema 4D. You can select your cloner here. Go to your transform, take your Z, and just drag that up. And then all you have to do is file, save, pop into After Effects. Check it out, a few seconds, there you go. So that's how you can kind of check and see when you need to make the changes check with the actual footage. I know you guys are probably writing comments right now that you can put a background layer in Cinema 4D of actual moving footage or just like a reference footage. In my opinion, I think this is easiest, but of course, it's whatever you guys are comfortable with. Playing through here, you'll see how the knives are actually moving. You'll see that it's tracked correctly. Now, when it comes to actually designing the look of the knives, there's one more step that we need to do. First off, we can uncheck this green track solid. So this green little check here, just click that. We don't need that once we have the thing positioned where we want. Now these knives are looking good, but they're looking a little like plastic knives. They're not looking like dangerous metal. And I'll show you my first render here where I did this without adding this next step I'm about to tell you. You can see it looks kind of plastic. It looks a little chintzy. Now here's the newer version, and it doesn't look completely photorealistic, but it does look a lot better. There's a lot more reflections. To add in those reflections, you're going to need an HDRI map. There's a few ways you can go about doing this. You can just find a random one that's similar to your scene and drop it in there like what I did. Or you can buy some fancy equipment, I think $300, where you can 3D scan your scene and create your own custom HDRI maps wherever you're at. So that is the best way. If you have your HDRI map from the exact scene, if I had 3D scanned that area to get the HDRI map, then the exact lighting of my scene could be replicated in 3D. And it would look a lot more realistic, but unfortunately, I don't own one of those. I'm probably gonna buy one soon to help improve the quality of the 3D content I put out, but we're gonna just do a little custom one that's similar to our scene. So to do that, in Octane, I just go to Objects, HDRI Environment. We load it here. Everything's going to turn dark. Here's our Octane sky. It has this little HDRI tag. Select that. And in here is just an image texture. So we need to load our HDRI into here. Click the image texture. You'll see it says file name .hdr. Now, if you just go and look up HDRI, check it out, HDRI Haven, HDRI Maps, you can find a bunch of these for free. You'll see what those kind of look like, skies. Find one that best matches the lighting, time of day. I'm gonna go ahead and just click my 3 dots here, and I'm gonna find that HDRI. And now it's loaded in. So now you'll see, if I kind of zoom in here, you'll see that these trees are being reflected in the actual blades of the knives, and it's just making them look a lot more realistic. You can actually rotate the HDRI if you want to kind of change the reflections. Select the Octane sky, and in our environment tag, you'll see our image texture that I was talking about. Click into there. You guys can change the power. It's kind of like the brightness. Another great tip, change your type here. If you don't want all the green in the reflection, you can change that from normal to float. And that's just going to keep the reflections, but keep them black and white. And I think for the knives, this actually works pretty well. So if I zoom, here's what that looks like. You can even see closely some like trees in the reflection of the hilt. So we have this HDRI in here, but when I render, I don't want to have this weird image in the background. To make sure this is invisible, technically it is, but what you need to do is open up your Octane settings or your project settings and slide down here to where it says alpha channel, and we're going to check that. And you'll see it goes away, but we still have our reflections. I'm also gonna uncheck keep environment. And while we're here, let's go ahead and just set these, get them out of the way. You guys can change off direct lighting, but I'm just gonna keep it because we're not doing anything crazy. Take your samples from 128, put them close to 1,000. I've been keeping them at like 840. I think that's fine. That'll just make the quality of your render a lot better. It's not gonna take too long. I think it takes me like 5 minutes to actually render out this full scene. So it's nothing crazy, and that's good. Just important thing is make sure your alpha channel is checked. Of course, this is what it's gonna look like if it's not, and make sure your samples are up. Okay, and that is about it. So if you guys like the look of it, file, save, pop into After Effects. You always wanna check out what that's looking like. When you are ready to render, you pop into Cinema 4D. Last thing, let's add a little bit of lighting here just so it's not dark. So I'm just gonna go to Objects, Lights. You can add a daylight. I'm going to add an area light. So we don't want the light blocking the camera, so we'll click on the light tag. Visibility, see camera visibility, turn that off, and you'll see this is what it looks like, light on, light off. So you can tell from that knife. So when you're ready to render, come up to your settings, click this. The great thing about doing this in After Effects and Cinema 4D is since we brought in that After Effects camera with the After Effects track solid, it completely just copy and pasted all of our settings here. So our width and height, we don't have to touch it. Frames, just put that on all frames. That's fine. Of course, change the renderer to whatever renderer you're using. So I'm using Octane. If I kept it on standard, all the Octane stuff, the look of it wouldn't render. It would just look like this when it's rendered. So I'm going to change my renderer to Octane right there. Now we go to save. and this is where you want to save it. So click these three dots and let's go back to our main folder, Godzilla effects. And anytime I do a render, you'll see I have a folder, knife renders. This is what it's going to look like. Just a bunch of images, and as you scroll, you'll see it's kind of going in and out. So let's right click, make a new folder. So folder, tutorial, knife renders, and double click into that folder and just name it something. So I just name it knife, and whenever it renders, it'll say knife 0, knife 1 every frame. So save it. Format, I like to just do TIFF, PSD layers. This is a big one. Make sure alpha channel is checked on here as well as in your Octane settings. So now you can go ahead and click this button and it will begin rendering. So check it out. And we're going to use that exact strategy here that we just did to create this, to create our other 3D thing. So the way that we render, set it up, the way we bring in the tracking info, everything's going to stay the same except for how we design what 3D thing is going on. So familiarize yourself with this process, rewind it. If it's tricky, leave questions in the comments if you're stuck. I'll try my hardest to help out. People in the comments are always helping each other out. So if you're stuck, please don't. I've already rendered this out previously, so I'm not going to render it, but you can even right click and show file in Explorer, and you'll see now they're rendering out. So once that's done, what you want to do is you hop into After Effects, you go to your project bin here, you right click and you go to import multiple files. And now you go to where you rendered everything. So I did moving knife renders. This is where we did it. So here's everything rendered out. You can see all 140 frames. All you have to do is select the first picture. You don't have to highlight all of them. Make sure TIFF sequence is checked. Import as footage, import. And then you just click OK, and then you click done. Now it opens up, now it creates this for you. Drop it in there and check it out. You got your knives in your scene. All right, so this is perfect. Now the only issue here is you'll see that there's some of these that are in the background kind of peeking through. Now there's two ways to fix this. You guys can either go back and render a kind of depth pass, and depending on what renderer you are using, there's a lot of different ways to do this. Or what you can do is you can literally just mask it. Masking it for this was not that hard. I think it maybe took 5-10 minutes. A little bit annoying, but you got to do what you got to do. One other thing, you'll see that if I play this, it's not tracked in. It's kind of shaky and the duration isn't right. As you can see in my project bin, frame rate, it's 30, but this footage is 23.978. So make sure the frame rates are corresponding. But if you just run into this issue where this is 30, but you did it all correct, you can just right click, interpret footage, main, and we'll just interpret this as 23.976. Click OK. And now you can just drag it out. Now it's properly tracked. There's a little bit of jiggling from the handheld movement, but to fix that, so say you want to do an After Effects, we right click, pre-comp this. You want to add a warp stabilizer, and this will take away your shakiness if it is a little bit of handheld going on. This will make it smooth. So just drop your warp stabilizer onto there. Again, you can do this in Adobe Premiere with a dynamic link. So this is stabilizing and should be good to go. So play that out. So our warp stabilizer is complete. So after that, we've completed our first 3D scene with our knives step by step. And again, we're gonna skip a little bit of these steps here because I showed you the workflow from getting the footage into C4d to tracking it to putting what 3D thing you want into the track space, checking it in After Effects, all the way to rendering, color grading, stabilizing. That's all going to stay the same. The only thing we're going to change in that process that I just showed you is instead of making a circle of knives, now we're going to make 3D puke, or we're going to make 3D blood. And we're going to take that same workflow, and now we're going to take the 3D puke or the 3D blood and put it in front of our camera.